All right guys, so we're back with another video. Today I have Professor Jose here. We're gonna talk about the most effective performance supplement that you can use that you're probably using, but you may not know why you're using it. Jose, take it away.
So what if I were to tell you there was a supplement that consistently improved strength, power, endurance, and reduced fatigue, and even improved your decision-making process along with your cognitive performance, and it costs less than a coffee? That supplement is going to be caffeine. Caffeine is currently one of the most widely consumed supplements or compounds in the world, not necessarily for ergogenic aspect, meaning we're not really using it to perform better in sport or training. We consume it in coffee, we consume it in teas, we consume it in some candies as well too. Again, generally not for the purpose of performance, however, it is the most consumed compound out there, and again, unknowingly for performance. A couple of key points we want to talk about here with caffeine, and these are the ones I want you to take away with you at the end of this video. It's going to block adenosine receptors, and this is where we see that energy aspect or that perception of energy. Adenosine is a chemical responsible for making us feel sleepy or tired, right? So in the morning, we have a ton of adenosine. As we wake up, it starts to go away. Towards the night, it starts to come back into our system and fall into the receptors to make us get sleepy, assuming you have a regular sleep cycle. Now, when it blocks adenosine receptors, what it's doing is it's not allowing those adenosine to touch the receptors. Therefore, you're not getting sleepy. This is where we feel that alertness, or, you know, when you're tired, you have a cup of coffee and you feel more awake. There's actually no energy in caffeine whatsoever. Energy would come from your macronutrients, not caffeine. Instead, what it gives you through blocking these adenosine receptors and improving alertness, it's going to simply give you a perception of energy, and you feel like you can do more things. You feel more alert, and you're going to feel more focused on whatever the task is you have at hand. Again, it's going to reduce fatigue. It's going to improve alertness. Now, on the performance side of it, specifically the mechanical work aspect, it's going to improve motor unit recruitment. This is why we see an increased strength output, increased peak power, and endurance, but muscular endurance, right? Because more motor units are working, more work can be done, therefore your work capacity is increased, and by the definition, you're going to have better adaptations or more adaptation. It's also going to decrease your effort and pain perception. Not to say that if you drink caffeine and you get hit, you're not going to feel that punch. What it's saying is, for example, if you're doing a bench press, you're doing 135, let's say that's an RPE of 9 for you, rate of perceived exertion. You do it pre-caffeine. Then you take caffeine, wait 30 minutes to an hour. You do that same weight. Now it maybe feels like a 7 instead of a 9. That's what I mean by improving your perception or reducing the pain and effort perception. It's going to also increase your focus. Because you're not tired, because you're more alert, you can focus more. Caffeine has widely been used as a cognitive performance supplement as well too. Very popular in video games, very popular in sports, especially sports that require focus. Now, if you're a sport that requires steady hands, this may not be the best one, like archery and any kind of shooting sports. Lastly, because we have all these benefits here, we can see improved not just performance, but within our training sessions, we can see increased work capacity and increased adaptations because of that work capacity. Now, here's the thing that most people get wrong: the dose of caffeine.
Real quick, before we get back to the video, I wanted to make the announcement that the school community is now live. Now, inside the community, you have courses on nutrition, supplementation, training, and the philosophy behind the training. You also get free template programs that have been organized throughout my years, and a live Q&A call each and every week with me. So if you're interested to join the community, just click the link down below in the description, and I'll see you on the inside.
If you are a coach or if you're an athlete who wants to get it down to the decimal, this is generally what you would follow. This is the sweet spot: 3 to 6 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of body weight a day, or pre-training or pre-performance. This is a little tedious to measure out, especially if you're using an energy drink or a coffee as your source. Now, if you're using caffeine anhydrous like the powder or the pill itself, might be a little bit easier, but this is the sweet spot for most people. Now, to give you an example, if you're an 80 kilogram athlete, if you follow this recommendation, you'll be consuming 240 to 480 milligrams of caffeine pre-training, so about 60 minutes, right? To give you an idea, one of the most conventional energy drinks, 2 of them, if you have those energy drinks that have 300 milligrams, you take 1.5 and that'll give you your dose, right? So as long as you're between here, you're in the sweet spot. However, when we look at supplements, now with exercise and some supplements, the concept of more is better does exist, but it's not applicable to everything we apply in our performance or training. So there's no meaningful benefit above that 6 milligrams per kilogram of body weight dose. Actually, you may see negative effects, and we'll get into that in a second. Again, with the dose, if you want to measure it out, if you have the means to do so, this is what I would follow. Again, for the most part, an energy drink or 2 will get you within this range pre-training, and this is how you can do it without having to do too much math and measuring. Okay, now with the timing, nutrient timing for almost anything we take as far as supplements and macronutrients does matter. With caffeine, even more so, because it's pretty quick acting and the effects aren't really that long in the sense of performance. So 60 minutes pre-training, right? And your sources can be coffee, capsules, gum, gels, energy drinks. Again, capsules and your powders, caffeine anhydrous will probably be your best source if you want to get very very specific on the dosing protocol. Now with the side effects, generally this happens in the higher doses or lower doses for some people. So side effects could be poor sleep, anxiety, gastric intestinal distress, right? This is the most common one, especially associated with coffee, jitters, elevated heart rate, and there's some individual variability. Now, what I mean by that, and some people can be hyper responders and some will be non-responders or caffeine naive. So some people may not experience this at all. Somebody drinks a cup of coffee, they may experience some of this, all of this. It all really depends on your genetics and how you metabolize caffeine. It's not necessarily the source of the caffeine. Oftentimes it's the caffeine itself. When it comes to the poor sleep, anxiety, jitters, heart rate, the source itself can upset your stomach. Again, some coffees may be too acidic, so it may upset your stomach. You'll still get the benefits of caffeine, but if you're rushing to the bathroom, then that's going to obviously affect your performance. Hyper-responders and caffeine naive are used interchangeably here. This means that you only need either a very little bit of caffeine to get the ergogenic benefits, meaning lower than this, or even just a little bit can throw you into just negative side effects. If you're caffeine naive, it means you're not used to caffeine, right? And that means that you can have elevated side effects because you're not used to it. So always start off low. Now, with some people, you don't respond at all, or you respond very minimally to a higher dose. But again, just like everything else, it is all dose dependent. You really have to find out what works best for you. These are guidelines, but you should start out somewhat low to see what works best for you. Now, does it work for everybody? For the majority, I would say yes. However, like we discussed, there are your non-responders and there are your hyper-responders and then your caffeine naive individuals. It all depends on genetics. Genetics are going to affect your metabolism and sensitivity. The two genes that we're discussing here, the CYP, this is a liver enzyme, and the liver is going to metabolize about 95% of the caffeine we consume. Depending on how this gene is reacting in your body, you may metabolize caffeine slower or you may metabolize caffeine faster. This is what's going to affect those ergogenic benefits and of course the side effects as well too. This gene here is responsible for caffeine sensitivity. If you have a higher sensitivity, of course you're in a higher risk of being affected from these side effects through your conventional lower dose. If you have a low sensitivity, then you may need a higher dose. So this is the one that kind of dictates whether or not you're going to respond well or bad to a specific dose based on the guidelines. However, I will say this, genes are genes, you're not going to change that, so really different doses don't really mean different responses. But caffeine is very tricky. Caffeine is very individualized in that way, that you have to try it out first before you take it. Don't try caffeine for the first time. You're going to go train and you slam a 300 milligram energy drink. That might end badly. So the practical recommendation for this would be to start at about 2 to 3 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of body weight a day if you want to measure it out. If this is what you're doing, then maybe a lower content energy drink is what you would go for instead of the 200 and 300 milligram one. If it's your first time taking it, or if you have taken it but you want to now play with the doses to see if it improves performance, test this during training, never during competition. One of the biggest mistakes all athletes make is try something new before competition. You do not know how your body will react. Always try it in training. You do not want to chase mega doses. We see this all the time, especially in memes. You know, you wake up at 4 in the morning, sleep 3 hours, you drink 3 energy drinks by noon, right? So don't chase these mega doses because again, you won't see any meaningful benefits and you'll actually may see some regression in your performance. You also want to avoid taking it too late, assuming you have a sleep schedule that is normal, right? If you're someone that for some reason works nights, then of course you're probably going to take caffeine late. But in the sense of performance and a conventional sleep schedule, try to take it before 5 p.m. And this may vary again because of this. 5 p.m. may be too late for someone, right? 4 p.m. may be too late for someone. Just try not to take it too late where it's going to affect your sleep. But again, you're going to find that out on your own by trying out caffeine. And then lastly, you want to consider the daily intake. Caffeine does wear off, and this is where we get our caffeine crash. So what happens with our daily intake, right? Let's say you take one energy drink and then you feel tired again later. It'll get you up and it'll bring you back down. What's happening here in these undulating waves of adenosine is that as these receptors are being blocked, yes, adenosine is not entering, but it stays, let's just call it here in the cloud. It stays here. Once that caffeine clears from the receptors, all that adenosine is going to rush into the receptors. Oftentimes there's a greater affinity for the receptors, meaning you're going to feel more tired. This is what is colloquially called the caffeine crash. You're crashing because all those adenosine molecules are now entering your receptors how they normally would, but you let them bunch up, right? So they're just rushing through. Think of like Black Friday for adenosine. Who is caffeine good for? Both men and women. Anybody who's physically active, of course, even if you're not, caffeine is good. And especially depending on the source, right? There's a lot of anecdotes saying that caffeine content from coffee or drinking coffee in general is more beneficial, especially for cardiovascular health. It's great for aerobic sports, it's great for anaerobic sports, and it's great for any kind of resistance training. So essentially, if you're an athlete or a physically active individual, you will benefit from consuming caffeine because you're going to see all the improvements in power output, in strength, in muscular endurance, in alertness, and of course, your perception of energy. If you haven't tried caffeine, I mean, I do recommend it, especially if you're an athlete. It's really a safe compound or supplement to take, assuming you're not going over the doses recommended. Just like everything else, for the most part, what we consider safe, if you take too much, it's all dose dependent. Even water has an upper tolerable level that can be toxic. So be sure you're adhering to the guidelines and starting small doses so you can see if the benefits are applicable to you or not.
Now, as far as particular sports, what are going to be a good dosage range for those combat sport athletes with those mixed modal demands?
So that's a pretty good sport because that's a sport that not only requires a mixed energy system approach like aerobic and anaerobic, right? However, it's also going to require a high amount of decision making. This, for some of them, may be too high, especially I've seen this happen with a lot of the Russian fighters. They're not really used to caffeine and they'll be hyper responders and then they'll just, kind of.
Well, they're naturally high.
Yeah.
Like they're naturally high energy.
I mean, if I were to give you a flat number from 125 all the way to heavyweight, about 200 milligrams before training is going to be pretty beneficial. One, you're going to have a higher work output. Two, your decision-making process will be better, right? Especially when you're having punches thrown at you. You got to know not just to evade it, but also how to counter. So reaction time is another one that you'll see an increase in. A majority of the caffeine studies in performance are generally with decision-making and reaction time. And pretty much across the board, caffeine within these doses have shown an increase or an improvement in reaction time and decision-making processes.
Let's talk about like American football. Where are some of those dosages range in that particular sport?
Probably wouldn't change it too much. I would still stick to this if you want to be, very specific to it because it's all going to be based on body weight. So obviously if you have a skills player versus the biggest player, right, they're still going to follow this. Now the actual dose will be a lot less. Maybe for the skills it's like 195 milligrams. For the bigs, it's a giant man, maybe it's 300 milligrams.
Gotcha.
Right? It's not so much like should I have a 300 milligram drink or a 200 milligram drink. It's if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty, you're going to follow these recommendations because it's based specifically to the person's body weight.
Well, there you have it. So if you want to find out more details, we also have a full course with Professor Jose here on the school community. So the link is down below. Check it out. Where can they find you on your Instagram?
Darth_Flex with 2 X's everywhere, and on LinkedIn, Jose Rojas. The only one, I think.
We're out, bro.